Thank you for joining us today. First thing they wanted to do was maybe give you a little insight into Vazata and who we are and what we do. Try not to spend too much time on this because I know that can be a drag sometimes. Now, the first thing, Vazata, we've been in business for 17 years. We are a co-location infrastructure services company, and we deal with global 1,000 companies and the U.S. federal government. Best thing to think of is if you need secure, compliant, or trusted data, then we're the company for you. We were founded in 2000, like I said. We're headquartered out of McKinney, Texas, and we have 4 data centers. 3 of them are in the Dallas-Fort Worth area, and 1 is in Northern Virginia. If you want to do business with the federal government, you pretty well got to be in that area. And we have a reputation for outstanding customer service. We're a 24/7 shop, so we answer the phone when you call us, and we like to get to know our customers and really know what they're doing. And from there, I'm sorry, I'm kind of saying we have a compliant solution need. So we're very heavily focused on security and compliance. And these are just some of the services we offer. I'm not going to go through all these because then you'll be sleeping on the phone. But we offer managed services. Veeam Cloud Connect is one of the big things we're going to talk about, or the main thing we want to talk about today. And as our partnership with Veeam has enabled us to do a lot of things for customers in the DR realm. So we'll go into that more here in a few minutes. We have a full cloud deployment. We have 1 in Dallas and 1 in Virginia, which allows us to replicate between those sites. So if you want to, run live production data in one site and replicate to the other, so you have geographical redundancy, we can do that for you. And of course, we also have co-location. So if you just need to house your physical servers, we can do that. And of course, you see the other things there. We got disaster recovery, and we deal a lot with the federal government. So what is the importance of DR in your enterprise? One of the big things and the main thing we want to talk about today is Veeam and the spectacular product that they put together and what it's doing to reduce the cost and complexity of disaster recovery for your enterprise. And then on top of that, we want to offer or tell you about what Vazata can do, teaming with Veeam, to be able to deliver that solution to you. And with that, I'll turn it over to Matt, and so he can tell you all about Veeam.
Awesome. Thanks, Eric. And hello, everyone. My name is Matt Price. I'm one of the Inside Solutions Architects here with Veeam Software. So first off, thanks to the Vazata team for having me on the call today. What I want to do is not take you guys through every single thing that Veeam can do because I know we don't have all afternoon to finish this webinar. But I do want to talk about a few of the key features that really sets Veeam apart, some of our core functionality, and then we're going to relate that into how it applies to get that data off-site to really, facilitate that whole disaster recovery factor. Now, what you're looking at here is a slide that we talk about a lot, and it's a common thing in the industry known as the availability gap. And essentially all that means is what the end users expect versus what IT can deliver. And generally there's going to be a gap in coverage, whereas an end user expects 0 downtime essentially, or very minimal. Chances are the average recovery time is 3 hours or greater. And we're actually going to walk you through a few different ways that Veeam can enable an RTPO of less than 15 minutes for all applications and data. Now, for those of you who have never heard of Veeam before, it's got 2 E's in Veeam, and we've been around since basically around 2008, so a little over a decade now. We've been out, developing solutions for virtualized environments when you look at data protection. Now, as far as what we do at a high level, we are an agentless solution that is designed to protect your virtual workloads in either VMware Hyper-V infrastructures. We're doing image-level data protection, so we're encapsulating the entire virtual machine, everything inside, down to the OS, the apps, the files. We have our own deduplication and compression, and we can back up to really anything that's disk-based at origin. And we're going to go into what we can do when you look at off-site storage targets specifically for today's session. But before we get to how you get the data off-site, let's look at how Veeam actually protects that data properly. And what I mean by that is our application-aware processing. Now, we've had this in our software for several iterations, and basically what this gives you is VSS-aware backups. So take, for example, you guys run things like SQL or SharePoint or Exchange. The last thing you would want to do is go up to the wall and yank the power cord out, right? Bad things would happen, nobody gets any sleep. So what Veeam actually developed several versions ago is a tie-in to VSS. So before we back up those critical workloads, we can actually send a request to Microsoft to enable them an opportunity to quiesce those workloads before the snapshot gets generated. So basically, put simply, transactional consistency, not crash consistency. So a very important capability when you look at proper virtual machine backup. Because at the end of the day, if you're not able to back up the virtual machine properly, who cares if you've saved it in 32 locations? It's still corrupt, right? So the goal initially is to get a solid backup that's transactionally consistent that can then be portable, where you can actually take that backup off site. Now we can do other things with that feature like log backups if you happen to run SQL or Oracle, and maybe you're not running a Windows-based application. You know, maybe you've got MySQL on Linux. We also support in-guest scripting of those key apps as well, like the pre-freeze and post-thaw. Now, this slide actually speaks for itself. So one of the common things that we hear a lot of times is, okay, your image level data protection, you don't have any agents, so all you can do is recover my virtual machine. Not the case. As you can see here with our latest release of 9.5, there are literally 57 different ways from a single backup file that you can restore granular items. And obviously we're not going to go through every single one of these, but the point is you have granular recovery options. And we're going to look at just a few of these in a little bit greater detail. And it starts at the highest level. So what happens, going back to that common misconception, if you did lose the entire virtual machine? So what does Veeam do in that scenario? So we have a solution known as instant VM recovery. And what this enables you is the ability to run a virtual machine directly from your backup file. So take, for an example, maybe this was Exchange that failed or SQL or whatever. We can actually fire it up from the backup repository, and this is still talking about on-site backups, right? We haven't hit the cloud yet. We haven't gone to Vazata's data center yet. This is still your on-site repository. We can run these servers directly from backup files, and then once everybody is back to work, everything is reconnected, then we can migrate the workload that's already running back into your production environment. So very, very little downtime if you have a full VM fail. Now, because we can run the servers from the backup files, we didn't stop with just instant VM recovery. We actually built onto that. The other thing that we provide is automated recovery verification testing, and we call this Sure Backup. And basically what this does is the exact same technology where we can run it right from the backup file, but now we're running it in an isolated, fenced-off environment known as a virtual lab, and it gives you this isolation so that you can actually turn on the virtual machine to fully ensure it's recoverable. Make sure that it boots up, make sure that it reaches a logon prompt. You can do ping testing against it, heartbeat checking against it, even run custom scripts, and then when you're done, notice in the graphic you get a report. So you actually get an audit trail report of everything that we verified to ensure recoverability. So Veeam just took what you might do on the weekend once a month and automated it, right? And we're doing it from the backups that you're already creating. Now, another interesting concept is you can use this as a sandbox. So let's say you've got a patch you want to test out, maybe a new software application you need to roll, maybe you want to do some custom queries or scripts against SQL. You can actually spin up one or several virtual machines inside this isolated bubble, and now you can actually treat it exactly like a sandbox. Now, notice point number 3. This is important. It doesn't require any additional production storage, because remember, these virtual machines are being run directly from the backup, which is on backup storage, deduped, compressed, so you don't have to allocate additional SAN space or additional production data store space to actually have a lab. Definitely saves you a lot of time. You don't have to worry about keeping that lab up to date. And it's just another way, like the title of this slide, to leverage your data. Now, that's everything we can do at the high level, right? The full-blown virtual machine. But going back to those 57 ways, here's just a few examples of how we can drill into the backup and get very granular. So for an example, we're looking at Exchange. So here's a screenshot of what our Exchange Explorer would look like. So if you do run virtualized Exchange, either in your environment, maybe you've got Office 365 Exchange, we have a solution for that as well, but we can actually recover individual emails, calendar appointments, contacts, lists. We can let you open those items before you do a recovery. There's search capability built in. Same thing for Active Directory. These are going to look exactly the same because this is the dynamic across the board. It's the same look and feel in the UI, but it allows you to crack open these key applications. So like with Active Directory, you can do OUs, you can do computer accounts, user accounts, group policy objects, even DNS records. You can drill all the way down to the configuration partition. You can actually do a live comparison inside of Active Directory, which is a very handy feature. You can actually look at the current state of Active Directory, compare it against the latest backup state, and Veeam will actually show you what was modified. We do the same thing for SQL, right? So if you found yourself in an environment where you run virtual SQL and you need not only log backup capability, which we can do, but you need the ability to recover databases, maybe schema and data within those databases. Maybe you want to take a production SQL database and actually restore it to a test dev instance of SQL. We can actually do all that directly from the backup that you're going to be taking anyway, thanks to our Explorer for SQL. Okay, so you can see the screenshot as it modifies here. You can actually get all the way down when you're looking at a recovery to point-in-time restore down to the transaction level. So again, not only can we back up the logs, but we can actually replay the logs completely inside the Veeam GUI. Same thing for Oracle, right? Same functionality. We can do log backups for Oracle. You can do database extraction. You can do log replay. And the nice part about this is it doesn't matter if Oracle is running on Windows or Linux. It's still supported. Same idea, point-in-time recovery to the transaction level. What about SharePoint? Maybe you're in an environment that has SharePoint. Same idea, right? So you get the picture by now. It's all the same look and feel in the Explorer, but those 5 critical applications that are somewhat common, you wouldn't imagine, SQL, Active Directory, certainly, Exchange, SharePoint, and Oracle, we can actually crack open that backup file and let you get certain items from within those apps. With SharePoint, you can do entire site recovery. Maybe you just need shared content, like a few documents. You can do that. Export it, in-place restore, email attachment, tons of versatility. So that's just a little bit around how we can recover your data, right? Because it's certainly critical to look at, well, what happens before you look at the off-site variable? How can Veeam protect us for the one-off, the two-off? Maybe we lost one VM and that's all we need to restore. So this is the way that we have you protected on site. Now, we also do file level recovery. No slide for this, but file level recovery is absolutely built in. Okay, so you've got image, application, and file. Now, very important concept that we all live here by Veeam. This is an industry standard, but we actually added our own spin on it. You may have seen this before in the traditional sense is known as the 3-2-1 rule. But you'll notice Veeam, we actually added a 0 on there, and I'll explain that in a minute. So the idea is, this general principle is 3 total copies of your data, right? Now production is going to count as 1. So if you run a SAN, if you've got a NAS, internal disk, and your host, whatever, the actual production virtual machine is going to count as 1, and you really do need 2 additional copies of that data equaling the 3 total copies. The 2 in this is 2 different types of media. Now, a lot of people might think, okay, well, disk and tape, what else is there? But this could simply mean cloud, right? This could mean going to Vazata. That's the same thing as going to a tape as far as, you know, when this rule is looked at, the two different types of media simply means, you know, target types. Is it a cloud target, tape target, disk target, etc.? So you definitely want to separate the media types. One being off-site, and this is the key. This is where Vazata comes into the equation when you're looking at this principle. You absolutely need one copy of data off-site. In my opinion, you need about 3 or 4 off-site. You can never have too many. But the idea is you need one geographically redundant away from your main data center. Now, where we add the 0 here is if you remember back a few slides when we talked about that sure backup. Who cares if you're sending data to 32 places like I joked about earlier if it's corrupt data, right? I mean, it's great to do 3, 2, 1, but if you don't check your backups before you start hitting the 2 and the 1, it doesn't matter, right? So the idea with Veeam is we want 0 errors. We don't want any corruption leaving our main site. So that's where sure backup comes into the fold. You want to make sure that you're testing your backups for recoverability as soon as Veeam creates them. That way, wherever those backup files go, you know they've already been verified. So at that point moving forward, it's basic checksums to make sure the blocks arrive okay, right? So very, very important, 3, 2, 1, 0. Now, how does Veeam help you get data to Vazata? No, I didn't plan that rhyme. So let's look at this. WAN acceleration, this is number 1. So Veeam actually developed WAN acceleration a few versions ago. This isn't a general purpose WAN accelerator. This is something that we designed for our specific file type traffic. And what it does is, if you remember earlier, I said that Veeam does dedupe and compression. So when you're doing those initial job runs, the deduplication engine, number 1, is job-based, and number 2, it uses a fixed block size. So the challenge is, in most environments, you're not going to have a single solitary job. You're going to have several jobs, maybe different policies, different schedules. There's going to be a need to break up your backup policy into multiple jobs, which means, from a Veeam perspective, you don't get global deduplication, right? Plus, it's using a fixed block size. When you add WAN acceleration on top of this, specifically when you're going from your on-site repository and you're sending this data to Vazata, and I'm going to explain how you get there in a second with Cloud Connect, the point is you may want to pick virtual machines from every job. Maybe you've got certain subsets of VMs that you need that policy for off-site, but those VMs on-site are coming from several different jobs, right? So many to one, if that makes more sense. The idea is the WAN accelerator now can do global deduplication, and it also uses variable block sizes. So you get much more aggressive dedupe during transit. Now keep in mind, this will not save you any additional resting space from a storage standpoint in Vazata's cloud. This is simply reducing the data that has to be pushed over the wire, because on the Vazata side of the WAN accelerator, they will actually have a cache location that may already have duplicate blocks, right? Think about operating systems. You know, if Vazata is offering this to 5 customers and all 5 customers run Server 2012 R2, well, guess what? There's no point of sending 5 duplicate copies of all those blocks. So that's really where it can save you a lot of time, especially if your WAN uplink is, I would say, 100 megabits or below. WAN acceleration is a very, very advantageous feature. Now, before we look at Cloud Connect, let me explain just real briefly what Veeam does when we say replication, because replication can have many different definitions, right? One person might say, oh yeah, replication, it means taking your backup file and replicating it to another disk target. That's true. But the way Veeam defines replication is host level, VM replication. So think about it, you run SQL, you run SharePoint, you run Exchange on site. Veeam can actually take those virtual machines and create you a fully functioning, fully hydrated copy of the virtual machine that is always registered in inventory, simply powered off, waiting on a disaster event to happen, waiting on the need to be failed over. So it's all about disaster recovery. Now, Veeam can support replication if you have your own data center, your own DR site, let's say. But where this really comes into play is when we look at Cloud Connect. Because when you look at Vazata's offering with Cloud Connect services powered by Veeam, what I call backup storage as a service, as well as the common disaster recovery as a service. Now, the reason I call this backup storage as a service is all that they are doing in their cloud is carving you up space, right? So let's say you as a customer need 10 terabytes of cloud storage. You call Vazata, you set up your account, you say I need 10 terabytes, done. They give you the parameters to connect to them. You will add them into your Veeam deployment, and all of a sudden you're going to have a new repository that has 10 terabytes of free space and says it's cloud. That's it. From there, it's all on you to manage. You're the one that's going to be backing up to it. You can do restores from it. So backup storage as a service sounds a bit more accurate than backup as a service, right? Because it's storage that you're really subscribing to. Now, disaster recovery as a service deals with our replication. So going to the Vazata cloud, you can decide, do you just need the cloud repository? Maybe you don't want that. You want disaster recovery as a service, or maybe you want both for best purposes, like best redundancy. Now, the replication is very unique because, remember, we actually have to create a virtual machine in inventory within the Vazata cloud. So what's really unique about Cloud Connect is, number one, networking simplicity. We've taken all the complexities out of the networking, and we simply allow you to connect to their cloud over an SSL connection, right, over a single port over the WAN. So you don't have to worry about establishing VPN tunnels with the service provider. You can actually do this directly through your Veeam deployment. Now, here's where it gets really interesting. If you replicate to the Vazata cloud, there's actually two different ways that you can fail over. You can do the common full site failover, and this is the typical scenario, right? Backhoe severs the fiber going into the building, power goes out, natural disasters coming in from the eastern seaboard, tornado comes through, whatever. Entire site outage. Simply put, you obviously need a full site failover because the site's down. Now, the other interesting thing we can do is a partial site failover. And where this comes into play is, let's say, for an example, you've got a subset of your environment that's already replicated up there, but you actually want to temporarily run it in the cloud. And, a common example is maybe you need to do hardware refreshes. Maybe you've got a cluster that you want to decommission or upgrade. Maybe it's something as little as a host. Not all of us have so many ample, and extra resources. We can leverage things like vMotion and sustain host failures. Right? If we do, that's great. That's the intended design. But not everybody, is in that situation. So what you could do is fail over a portion of your environment, run it in the Vazata cloud, and what's really awesome is Veeam can actually establish a layer 2 LAN extension directly to the Vazata cloud using Cloud Connect. So to you, if your SQL Server was normally accessible on 10.0.0.10, let's say, you can do a partial failover, run it in the Vazata cloud, and guess what IP you're still going to hit it on? 10.0.0.10. Amazing stuff, guys. So when you're looking at not only the versatility, but the scalability, and what I always like to call elasticity, right? Because think about it. You pay for what you need. You may only need 32 gigs of RAM and 500 gigs of data store space to get started, but as you continue to grow, all you got to do is pick up the phone and have them increase your hardware plan. So real simple process to scale and expand as you move forward, and tons of features and functionality built into the Cloud Connect offering. And it's all powered by Veeam, and coupled with the Vazata cloud, it really does simplify your disaster recovery strategies, moving into 2017. So there's obviously a ton more we could talk about on the Veeam side, but at this point, I'm going to pitch it back to you, Eric.
Excellent. Thanks, Matt. As Matt said, Cloud Connect has opened up a world to not only allow smaller companies or any size company really incorporate a DRaaS plan that works for them, but also is simplified and more cost effective. We would love to talk to you about that and show you, and what I hope to show you in the next couple of slides is the different types of services that Vazata has put together to help take advantage of that. And as we move forward here, so we talked about the, as Matt called it, about backup storage as a service. We obviously offer that, and it's really simple for us to deploy. We also have disaster recovery as a service, and we take it a step further. So what we've done here at Vazata is we've put together a fully managed product that if you're a smaller staff or just, you need help with your backups, you need, number one, Veeam is going to be one of those companies. I can tell you from experience, we were dealing with some of the bigger guys in the business in the past and had, not kidding, 20 to 30% failure rates. We brought Veeam in, and our failure rate is less than 1%. And that's remarkable if you look at, industry standards. So we tout Veeam every time we get a chance. So it's obviously our go-to-market partner. But we can do this. We come in, and we will actually manage the process for you. So we'll, if needed, we'll drop equipment on site so that we can deploy a Veeam proxy and hardware on site to back up your local copy, so that first copy of your data, so you got your production storage, and we'll provide that backup storage. And then we'll manage the jobs to make sure that is also then replicated or just copied off-site to one of our data centers. This takes the heartache and the headache of trying to develop that portion of the plan for yourself at a much lower cost, because no longer are you having to go out and spend the CapEx to buy the equipment, to maintain it, to find a data center to put it in. We're going to take care of those things for you. As I mentioned earlier, our facilities, all of our data centers are Tier 3 facilities. We house federal government in there. So they're FSMA compliant, HIPAA compliant, PCI compliant. If you're a federal agency, you're heard of the Fed, there's a big federal certification called FedRAMP. Vazata is FedRAMP certified. We were just awarded our Step 4, meaning we're NIST Step 4 certified. So we're proud of that. We're one of only 11 cloud companies that offers that service. Now, if you're a commercial customer, what that means to you is that you get to take advantage of the policy, procedures, and security, knowing your data is safe and secure, and we have everything in place to make sure it stays that way, just because you're in the same facility where the federal government is housed. We have a couple of different buckets that we can put you in. We have the standard service where I like to call it multi-tenant, to where this is going to be your lowest cost to entry, and it's going to, using Cloud Connect, it's going to make sure we get your data off-site. We have the standard RPO, RTO, which is your return to operations of less than 24 hours if you're using that service. That's just kind of a guarantee. Obviously, using this product, we can get it up much quicker than that in most cases. But we also have variations of that. Let's say you have certification needs or compliance needs. We have the flexibility to put you into more of a dedicated environment, where maybe you have dedicated hardware that we still help manage, and we let you have management capabilities into that as well. What that allows you to do is basically control your own destiny. So you'll have access into, let's say we're setting up Cloud Connect replication, and we set up the proxy on our side and we replicate into your own hardware on our side. You could then control when a DR is called and how it is called, or you can lean on us to take care of that for you. Both options are available, but this helps those customers that don't have the CapEx to be able to go out and buy new equipment. We get you out of the hardware business and let you focus on things that help make your company money. And then we have a variation, somewhere in the middle. So maybe there's pieces of that you need to be able to control, but you don't want to go to the full dedicated solution. We can put together a solution that fits your needs. And the best part about all this right now is that until the end of March, Veeam and Vazata is offering $1,000 in free services If you become a Veeam customer or are an existing Veeam customer and you're not taking advantage of the Cloud Connect services, you can go online to the link that is there on the screen. Obviously, you can go to Veeam's home site or webpage and find the link there as well. And basically, you fill it out. Again, this is for existing customers. So once you become a customer, you go in, you activate your code, and then you bring that code to Vazata. We'll solution a deal for you. We will, make sure the deal is right for you, and then we'll, find a way to use the $1,000 in credit toward your services with us. So again, it's 3 steps. You register, choose a provider, meaning Vazata, obviously, and then we'll set it up and get you started. The ease of getting this product started, Cloud Connect, because of its ease, is normally a couple hours process. That's from installing Veeam to presenting your Cloud Connect storage, and then start setting up your jobs. And then, from there, it's just the replication piece. One thing I do want to go back and hit that it just came in my mind is, let's say you have a large data set. You have 30, 40, 50 terabytes of data, and, trying to replicate that across the line may not be feasible. One thing that Vazata does offer is seeding services, so we can send out, storage devices on site, replicate that data onto that device, and then bring it to us to seed. So that's one thing I forgot to cover earlier. I just wanted to remind everybody.